What's going on, Agent Sly here, and thanks for checking out another Division video. With the PTS back up and running and PC users getting a taste of Update 1.5 as well as Survival, I wanted to share my thoughts with my console brothers and sisters out there on what I've noticed so far. Now, I had the Division on PC for quite some time, but never really did anything with it because I always played on Xbox. But here recently, I started giving the PC a real go, and it's clear why PC guys have it easier. Getting used to the keyboard is something I still absolutely hate, and during boss fights, incursions, or the DZ, I still end up switching to a controller in the tense moments, so I can use my skills or heal properly without pressing a wrong damn button and dying right in the middle of it. So that's something that still pisses me off, but the aiming, guys, the aiming is absolutely night and day. Now, there really isn't much of a difference between 1.4 and 1.5, except for the weapons. So far, there hasn't been any new gear sets added to the mix, but there are a ton of new weapons to check out, including the blind battle rifle, which is now called the Urban MDR Assault Rifle. Now, unfortunately, I have not been able to get my hands on that beast yet, but from what I hear, it's good, but nowhere near the beast it was when it first leaked out back at E3. Now, what I do want to show you guys is a weapon I overlooked at first, and that, my friends, is the infantry MG5 light machine gun. Guys, it absolutely blew me away. During the first few weeks, like everyone else, I was trying just a little bit of everything. Assault rifles, submachine guns, snipers, marksmen, sidearms, shotties, the list. But back then, unless you used the RPK or the LSW, the rest of the light machine guns were absolutely trash. It wasn't until this recent huge 1.4 update that allowed LMGs to be used with greater efficiency. And as of right now, the MG5 has absolutely blown away any other weapon that I've used in 1.5 so far. Now, like I said, I have not been able to try the new MDR assault rifle, so maybe my thoughts will change, but right now, guys, the MG5 is my absolute go-to. So as most of you guys know, when you look for a weapon in the Division, you want the best bang for your buck. You want the most damage you can find at the highest rate of fire possible while still keeping it stable enough to land your shots and keep up your DPS. DPS numbers don't mean a thing if you cannot hit your target. So now in 1.5, again, we are progressing into a higher tier. There is now a World Tier 5 where NPCs are level 34 and max gear score is bumped up to 256. With that, just like we've seen in the past, numbers are also increasing on your gear and weapons to compensate for the higher damage numbers agents will be seeing. Now, depending on your firearms level, it is now not unreasonable to see unmodded shotguns, fresh off the shelf at 125 to 140k damage. SMGs, they're regularly in the 14 to 15k, and some assault rifles are even breaking the 17, 18k, and these are all, like I said, straight off the shelf, unmodded numbers. So as you can see, things are definitely getting higher. Mods, gears, attributes, I've even seen 35% health per kill returned as a talent, which seems pretty high to me. But besides that, the reason I'm showing you guys this is because LMGs were always low. Rate of fire fluctuated on the high mag weapons to like 500 to 550 rounds per minute. Ones like the RPK or the LSW had a better rate of fire, but they had smaller mags to compensate. The MG5, though, is in a league of its own. The one I'm using right now is not a god roll by any means, but look at these numbers, guys. 18.1 damage at 800 rounds per minute. Upgraded, I have 101 bullets. And this is with crappy mods, man. This isn't even the best mods that are in the game. This is just what I've been given for the PTS. And as you can see right here, this thing absolutely shreds. Now, of course, like I said, this is the PTS, and I'm using what stuff I was giving, along with what little I could re-roll to suit what I needed. So this is very, very far from an optimized setup. With some thought and the right setup, this is the gun you're going to want to find on day one. For example, take a look at this AK, which is proven to be one of the best ARs out there, always high in damage. It has 19.5 damage, but only 600 rounds per minute. My AUG is at 17,000 damage at 725, which, by the way, is also 10 times better this time around and a great choice for close quarters. I'm pretty sure the AUG is going to make a comeback. But the MG5 so far, unless it gets changed, the most damage you can find for the fastest rate of fire around. I've looked at other LMGs and a lot of other weapons, and few can come close to that damage to that rate of fire. Now, of course, others can fire faster, well over 1,000 rounds per minute, but again, you're getting back down into the lower damage numbers, and with rate of fire comes stability issues, so that's something you always have to keep in mind. Now, one thing I noticed, and this might just be a glitch, but the longer you hold the trigger on the MG5, the tighter the grouping becomes, and this just adds to the lethality. Once again, this is a test run, so we'll see what the future holds. Another thing I wanted to mention is that I do have high firearms, but that is because 1, the numbers have been increasing and getting over 5k firearms is very easy, and 2, talents will cut you off unless you have at least 4,500 firearms, skill power, or stamina. Otherwise, I would be well over 6k stamina and about 350k toughness, which so far seems to be plenty for all the PvE missions I've encountered. Now that's not high-end stuff, that's just, the base story stuff. I'll come out with a guide for the optimal setup for high-level play, but right now I just wanted to give you guys my initial thoughts about what to expect on 1.5. I'll get into high-level details later on. But back to the MG5 and the PC console thing. The MG5 is a dream weapon, and hopefully some of you out there have already been playing around with it, but it is a completely different weapon once you plug in a controller. Now you can see how stable this thing is right here. I'm basically just mowing these guys down, and I'm playing on a keyboard and mouse setup for this part. But watch what happens once I plug into a controller. It becomes another beast entirely, and it is easily 4 times harder to handle. While it still remains a beast, trying to control it on a controller is a different story, and one that I think needs to be addressed. So if you can pop into the PTS, definitely try and grab one of these guys, because they might get nerfed pretty soon, and this thing has shamed just about everything else that I've come across. AKs are obviously still great, LVOAC with stability, always a good choice. SMGs are surprising me, and they are hitting pretty hard at close ranges these days. I can totally foresee an AUG comeback, especially since we've had a small mag upgrade. Now they can keep the damage coming, something they sorely lacked back in the day. When they're modded in the right way, I think we're going to see a huge increase in SMG use. Now, I cannot wait to get the MDR and report back on how that weapon ends up performing against the MG and the other power weapons of 1.5. The 93R is a complete blast, and unfortunately, shotguns are still insanely lethal close up, which unfortunately is where they should be, but honestly, I don't think anything will ever compete with a shotgun sentry combo at close range in the Division. We'll just have to see what the devs think about it. Alright guys, so the final thing I wanted to talk about in this video is armor. Now I'll have more in-depth videos about this topic somewhere down the line, but right now, armor is the end-all, be-all stat. Nothing else is as powerful as armor, and honestly guys, that is a damn shame. When they made armor harder to come by, in terms of amount of gear you had to devote to in order to hit the cap, that pretty much started an armor race. Those who play the game a lot will have the gear needed to hit 70% mitigation, but now, fearing others with tons of armor, everyone else is going to flock to get that same protection, and guys, 70% is a huge amount of protection. Everyone is going to try and max out on armor in fear of being too squishy, and then once again, we're back to square one. Tons of cool talents and builds, but everyone is chasing armor. Unfortunately, right now, that's just how it is, and to compete at the top, you're going to need a bunch of it. Now, they have armor mitigation in the works, but simply throwing in mitigation isn't the answer, at least in my opinion. Especially if it costs armor to equip it. You'll leave yourself a little more vulnerable just so you can do a little more damage. I mean, doesn't that sound familiar? Oh yeah, because it's the same story with DPS and stamina. So, creative solution is going to be needed. Now, I think having requirements in order to pass 50% armor is a good way to start. For instance, say you need, 7k stamina in order to pass the 50% armor mark. This makes sure that firearms will take a huge hit. Now, I'm just shouting out numbers here, guys, but I think something along those lines in terms of harsh requirements of other stats, just like how you need a certain amount of firearms in order to unlock destructive or say fierce. Now, I think that's a good place to start. It will create a little bit of diversity and still allow someone to hit the cap if they really want to, but at a cost. We'll see how it turns out in the end, but right now, y'all, armoring up is pretty much a safe bet. Toughness numbers will be incredibly high in 1.5, but guys, don't let that fool you. Everything accounts for toughness now. It's not just armor and stamina. Exotic damage resilience, armor, protection from elites, shock resistance, all of that stuff now factors into toughness. So even though it's a good place to start, you can still have decent toughness and still be squishy. So the best thing to do is always check your armor percentage in your character menu to know for sure. But that's about it, agents. Like I said, guys, not a whole lot has changed at 1.5, except for a ton of bug fixes, a lot of weapons added, and a few talent change-arounds from minor to major attributes on gear, but that's about it. I plan on making a video of the top 3 weapons at 1.5 as soon as I get all of the new ones on hand, but right now, what you used at 1.4, a few SMGs, shotguns, and definitely that new MG5, those are all pretty safe bets. Just remember that console players will have a harder time controlling it using a controller, but on a PC, it is an absolute breeze. Now don't forget to armor up, and I'll try to release some best in slot guides here as soon as I can. Enjoy the PTS, guys, and hopefully everyone can enjoy it here soon enough. Thanks for watching, and as always, if you want to stay in touch with everything Division, Destiny, Mass Effect, Andromeda, or more vids from Sly Nation, follow me on Twitter at Sly Nation or check me out here on YouTube. Always a pleasure, guys, and thanks to those that are still with me, and a warm welcome to everyone new to the channel. See you guys next time, but until then, this is your boy Sly. Later, y'all.
Okay, Agent, I'm impressed. Like I'm gonna be too busy.